Into a Monday edition of Irish Hello Live from Aidan and I's apartment. It is Sports Equinox Day. All 4 U.S. professional sports leagues are happening today. They got action in the NHL. We got Monday Night Football in the NFL, World Series Game 3 in the MLB, and we got a lot of NBA games too on the slate. As awesome as this is, it's actually rarer than I thought. This is only the 32nd time this has ever happened.
Wow.
32nd Sports Equinox. The first one was in the 70s, I believe in 1972 or 1971. And the big highlight from that was the Pirates won the World Series over the Baltimore Orioles in 71. So I had a list here of the 26 greatest moments on a Sports Equinox day.
Okay.
And according to this article, we have not had one since Alec Mills for the Cubs threw a no-hitter in 2020.
Alec Mills.
And that is the only Equinox that we've had in September because of the all the COVID stuff that affected all the leagues. So yeah, we're still waiting for another big Sports Equinox moment to dethrone Alec Mills' no-hitter in 2020. So maybe we'll get some fireworks in the World Series tonight. Maybe we'll get some crazy NBA. You were talking to me about some NBA stuff that was happening last year on the Equinox.
Yeah, Paolo Banchero last year dropped 50, which was extremely impressive. Nikola Jokic had a big game on the Sports Equinox day. He had 40 points. Denver beat Toronto in overtime, and then Cavs beat the Knicks to remain undefeated. That was during their run last year where they looked unstoppable to start the season. They've kind of picked up right where they left off so far. So a lot of amazing things going on. I know the Steelers beat the Giants on Monday Night Football. It happened just around the same time last year. Just a couple days off as far as the dates go, but it's a super exciting time, and more sports the better. That's always how it is.
We always talk about October being the greatest sports month, this kind of time of fall where MLB postseason is in full swing, and then you have the NHL and NBA season starting up right when the NFL and college football seasons are in the middle of their seasons and heating up.
Yeah.
And the Equinox is kind of the encapsulation of all that. Let's start with the NHL. We never give the National Hockey League much shine. Smaller slate compared to the NBA, but the St. Louis Blues, my team, is in action tonight against the Pittsburgh Penguins, and then the Bruins play the Senators. So just a couple games. None of those jump off the page as being great games, but it counts. NHL is playing. They're part of the 4 leagues, and it's the Equinox. So Blues have struggled out of the gates. Last year it was they fired their head coach. They hired Jim Montgomery, and it was kind of this surge at the end of the new head coach bump, and they were one of the best hockey teams in the league the last month and a half of the season. They sneak into the playoffs in the 8th seed. They almost knock off the 1 seed Winnipeg Jets, the President's Cup trophy winner, and then they lose with seconds left on the last second shot by Winnipeg. That forced overtime, and then they lost in overtime. So heartbreaking into the season last year, but it left a lot of people optimistic about what that last stretch of the season was in the regular season going into this year, and that hasn't come into fruition yet. Blues have a goalie issue. Jordan Binnington is up and down. He's nicknamed Big Time Benner, but his biggest moments are always for Team Canada or back in the 2019 Stanley Cup Finals against Boston. He's never really been a regular season goalie in terms of start to finish over 82 games. Can you be one of the best in the league? A lot of people were optimistic about that this year, and he's going to have to be up to that performance because our backup goalie, Joel Hofer, was thought to be one of the better backup goalies in the league. He's been absolutely terrible this year. He's been pulled from 2 starts already, so it doesn't look like Binnington doesn't look like he's going to get much time off.
Yeah.
Is the issue. And your Sharks won on a walk-off goal last night.
That was awesome. Macklin Celebrini has quickly established himself as a top 10 player in the NHL to a lot of people, and he's 19 years old. He is just absolutely remarkable. Talk about a home run number 1 overall pick in a world where there's a lot of busts. He seems like a guy you can build the Sharks around, and then they have Misa, who they just got last year in the 2nd round, who's been great. Will Smith, Willie Macklin. The young core's there. It's just about now piecing it together. They're still a couple years away, but that Blues Penguins game I'm really interested about and intrigued because coming into the season, the Penguins weren't supposed to be anything.
They've been one of the best teams in the league, yeah.
Yeah, they're 6-2. I have a close friend that's a Penguins fan, and they were supposed to be mediocre. But they've came out of the gate strong, and Blues are still favored in this one, minus 120 on the money line. So expectation on the road is that they have a good shot at getting it done. And then nightcap, Bruins, Senators, two teams that have been mediocre. See what happens there.
Our Blues and Sharks, I just pulled up the NHL standings, and I knew both of us were struggling. We are really struggling. We're two of the bottom 3 teams in the league.
That's not so good.
Through the first week and a half, 2 weeks of the season. So,
but I've always said the worst thing in any sport is to be mediocre. You'd rather be good or bad. So if you got to be bad, then
so we got
be
that
bad.
down. That's good. That's good. We got that down. All right, you want to move into the NBA? There's a lot more games in the NBA to talk through.
Let's do it.
Had a very interesting start to the season. Anthony, the big game tonight is Timberwolves Nuggets, but Anthony Edwards just got announced that his hamstring strain that he had to exit. A lot of people were mad. A lot of people were calling for the FBI again last night. 3 minutes into the ball game, Ant left for Minnesota and seems to be a real injury. He's out for a couple weeks with that hamstring, and so that's going to be a big blow for the Timberwolves. They started slow last year. Now they're going to try to avoid that slow start again this year without their best player.
And they probably realized too that there's no reason to rush Ant back when the group around him collectively is good enough to make the postseason, or at least get in a viable position where if Anthony Edwards comes back a little later, they still have a clear runway at making the postseason. So there's no rush when we're on game 4 tonight, but something to watch because he's their engine. That is what the team is built around. It's not Julius Randle taking the ball up and initiating offense. It's Ant. And it's a bummer, too, because I said it on our show a couple days ago. This is Ant's time now for the next 6 years to go and win that first MVP. And I'm hoping that he can get it done because he's great for the game.
Speaking of MVPs and last year's NBA champions, the Oklahoma City Thunder are at the Dallas Mavericks tonight, 5:30. Cooper Flagg kind of finally had his really good NBA game to start his career. The Mavericks are 1-2. They got the job done last night, thanks in large part to Cooper Flagg, in a 139-129 victory over the Toronto Raptors, who had played some good basketball to start the year themselves. We talk about Flagg has been brought up numerous times again because the lack of a point guard situation for Dallas, and it's like, is Jason Kidd just going to use Cooper Flagg as their point guard, or is he going to give D'Angelo Russell a run because Kyrie, who knows when he's coming back? So Flagg's going to have a lot on his plate to start his young NBA career, but I know you were impressed with him all throughout high school, college, and now with Dallas.
He defensively is always going to compete at the NBA level because of his size and his instincts. I've never seen a player that, and people forget too, this guy reclassed up. He's the youngest player in the NBA. He's 19 years old and just dropped 22 in an NBA game, and he's soaring through the air and dunking it. He's going to be just fine. That's a multi-time All-Star we have on our hands. But that impact offensively, that's why when they can get Kyrie back, they will be in a perfect position in the West. They just have to stay afloat because Anthony Davis and Cooper Flagg, those are anchors defensively, and that's really what you can build on, especially if you're a contender. Defense doesn't matter if you don't put the ball in the hoop. But if you're a contender and you have that defensive anchor, then you're going to end up being in a great spot. And I still don't think they should have traded Luka, but that's another thing amidst all the Adam Silver stuff that looks quite fishy when you put it into perspective. And Flagg's been outstanding. Last night was great.
Another game tonight, Cleveland at Detroit. Those are two of the best Eastern Conference teams last year. On Peacock, yeah. I've had to watch games on Prime now, NBC,
it's crazy.
Peacock, all over the place. Cleveland looked really good the other night. They lost the first game of the year to the New York Knicks, but both squads were banged up. No Darius Garland for Cleveland yet. They got the job done against Milwaukee, who we're both very high on, despite no Dame Lillard this year. We think that team got better even. Adding Miles Turner. The role players going to take a next step up. Cleveland dealt with them last night. Great defensive performance. 118-113 victory. They weathered the storm of a Giannis 40-point performance. Now they have Detroit. That's going to be another defensive battle, I'm sure. Pistons are built on defense. I was low on the Pistons coming into this year. Did not like their offense. Malik Beasley was a very important player for them last year in terms of he was one of the best three-point shooters in the league. He put the ball in the bucket from beyond the arc, and not a whole lot of Pistons can say the same thing. But their role players really stepped up behind Cade Cunningham in the early part of the season. Cavs are 2-1, Pistons are 2-1. I know a lot of people are calling for a Cade Cunningham, like even more breakout season than he's already shown, and maybe an MVP tickets floating around. So this will be a fun game at 4 p.m. on Peacock tonight.
Yeah, those are two really good teams that are contending in the East. I also was low on the Pistons. I'm not fully convinced yet because in an NBA season when it's 82 games, I feel like the first real sample size is 15 games in. That's when you can gauge where teams are at. So I'll wait till that 15-game mark to give my full opinion. But they'll learn a lot about themselves tonight. Cleveland, despite not having Darius Garland, they're so well run with Kenny Atkinson at the helm. Donovan Mitchell is outstanding, and this very well could be a possible playoff matchup down the road.
Yeah. Magic was another team that I kind of grouped in with the Pistons as two East teams that a lot of people are high on. Magic's win total was flirting with 50. I thought that was unbelievable. They won low 40s last year. They were giving a lot of credit to Desmond Bane trade. A lot of people liked, but they've struggled out of the gates 1-2. They go on the road to Philly, who I knew you were higher on than I was. Tyrese Maxey has been the reason they've started 2-0.
Yeah.
And I like them again in this game, even though the Magic are favored. Orlando's a 5.5-point favorite on the road. That must mean, is Embiid not playing tonight? I know they're kind of messing with, 76ers have Embiid's out tonight. Paul George is out tonight. We know that. But 5.5-point favorites for the Magic. I haven't seen anything from Orlando that would make me want to pick them even in this spot.
No, Joel Embiid, even though he's been on the floor, you can tell he's still getting up to speed with NBA basketball.
They've capped him at like 20 minutes.
Yes, and that's usually, and he dropped 20 points in 20 minutes. His skill is still there. It's just about staying on the floor. He's one of the best skills for a 7-footer in the history of the NBA. But the Sixers, they still have, if Tyrese Maxey keeps averaging 34 a game, then they're going to be just fine. Another team, when we talk about staying afloat, that's another team that's simply in an Eastern Conference that is wide open with an Indiana Pacers that don't have Tyrese Halliburton, a Boston Celtics that don't have Jason Tatum. They've also got so much production. We have to shout out the rookie VJ Edgecombe. He had another good game in their second game of the season. He's been really efficient. So envision a Maxey Edgecombe future with this team, even if Joel Embiid isn't at the top of his game.
Well, if you get this from Maxey and Edgecombe for the majority of the season, and then you throw in guys like Embiid and Paul George, then that's a really, really good team in a very weak East. That's a team that can challenge Cleveland and New York if they are healthy. Tyrese the other night never was like an elite three-point shooter in college, but I saw a stat where in the first quarter of the game against the Hornets, he had more three-pointers made himself than the whole Hornets team, and then in the fourth quarter, he had more free throws made than the entire Hornets team. So he's doing it every which way. He's getting to the hoop, he's getting fouled, he's getting to the charity stripe, and he's shooting the ball really well from beyond the arc as well. So Maxey is going to have to do this, I think, because of the injuries. I mean, tonight, no Embiid, no George. Maxey's going to have another big game, but he's showing up.
Yeah, he is so good. I used to debate back in high school that Jordan Poole was better than him, and I lost that war. So,
Any other games that you're looking at?
This is random, but Celtics Pelicans, both teams are winless. Both teams shouldn't be winless because they're not that bad. And Boston, Jason Tatum deserves so much credit. He doesn't get enough love because this Boston team is a polar opposite, a shell of itself without Jason Tatum. He was their MVP. And yes, the roster around him has been outstanding for the past couple of years, but he has been the heart and soul. He'll go out and give you 35 and 5 every night. And I truly believe that Jason Tatum has been one of the more disrespected superstars in the NBA over the past 5 seasons. He won an NBA championship. He didn't win Finals MVP, but he brings it for all 82, and not having him is detrimental. And then the Pelicans, they've got to find a win.
They're 0-2. We were high on the Pelicans, especially if you could squeeze 60 games out of a healthy Zion Williamson, even 50. He is just so good when he is healthy and on the court. He looks good this year, looks very much in shape. I've seen a lot of defensive struggles that he's had out of the gates this season, but they should be 2-0. Frankly, they should be 2-0. They choked both of those wins away. They lost to the Grizzlies after having a lead there. They lost to the Spurs after having a lead late in that game. That was the Victor Wembanyama 9-block performance. So at home against the Celtics team are they shifting to not trying to win anymore? I mean, you got a guy like Jason Tatum, and now you have three ridiculous prospects that have already shown they're going to be ridiculous in exhibition games, and A.J. Demancia, Boozer, and Darren Peterson at Kansas. You got three guys there to choose from. A team like the Celtics, it's almost not fair that they are 0-3. They're clearly not going to be any shred of competitive without Jason Tatum this season. If you're the front office in Boston, you're licking your chops of what could be with Tatum and one of those guys teaming up.
I don't think they can be nearly bad enough even if they try. I don't think, unless the lottery is rigged.
But then they're probably going to trade Anthony Simons. That front court is awful.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be weird to think of the Celtics as one of the worst teams, but they are 0-3.
I'd like to think that Jaylen Brown and Sam Hauser and Peyton Pritchard can still get you 30 wins, though. And that would put them out of those talks, unless it's rigged, as I mentioned, which has already been brought up. But if they somehow run into it, if they run into a top 3 pick, then of course it's worth it. You get a healthy Jason Tatum back in a weak East, you're winning the championship in 2026 or 26-27 season. You are. But I still, 3 games in, they've played the Sixers, the Knicks, and the Pistons. The Knicks and the Pistons were both on the road. Those aren't bad teams by any stretch. I'm not ready to call the Celtics bad.
Yeah.
Just yet.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. That is an intriguing matchup in New Orleans. Both teams vying for their first victory of the year. Your Warriors play tonight. They're at home against the Memphis Grizzlies.
The Grizzlies must have somebody out. I haven't looked at the injury report. I guess it's just the same names that have been out, but they're giving us 8.5 at home, which is quite a lot against a Grizzlies team that has looked decent thus far. But coming off a loss to Portland, it was the back end of a back-to-back with Denver.
You beat Denver.
Beat Denver.
Very impressive in that game.
The team just looks really good. I was super high on the Warriors coming into this season. Much better group than last year, and that group last year started off whatever it was, 11-1 or something crazy, was number 1 in the West, and then petered off, got Jimmy Butler, got late life, but then a Steph Curry hamstring derailed the season in the playoffs. If Steph and Jimmy stay healthy, or just one of them stays on the floor, they'll be a top 5 seed in the West. And then you roll the dice with a group filled with veterans that have been there before, can easily win ring number 5. That's just how this team operates. When you're that good, when you have the dynasty DNA, it's always just about getting it.
Another late night game. Lakers hosting the Timberwolves, the aforementioned Timberwolves that knocked off, or excuse me, the Trailblazers, not the Timberwolves, that knocked off your Warriors. We're not high on this Lakers team. They're 2-1. Austin Reeves just dang near had a 50-point triple-double, but they still barely beat the Sacramento Kings. They need performances like that night in and night out from either Luka or Austin Reeves. And, hey, maybe they'll get it in 50 out of their games this year. But they don't play defense. The role players are just not going to be there. I mean, they needed a 20-point game, a really big game from DeAndre Ayton last night, too, to pull that off. So I'm worried about the supporting cast, even if we get a fully healthy LeBron James after the sciatica thing. Very concerned about the defense. The health issues are always going to be looming over LeBron's head. It's just I'm not confident in this team over a full 82 at all.
I'm not either. And the one thing you can lean on if you're a Lakers fan watching this is you have Luka Doncic. And Luka Doncic is that good. He's a top 5 player in the world. He can put a team on his back and go all the way to the NBA Finals, as we saw with the Dallas Mavericks. But that Dallas team, too, much better defensively, much better role players overall. The Lakers, it just doesn't feel like they have it. A lot of their vets are aging stars, aging role players, Marcus Smart. So this test at home versus Portland will show us a bit, because Portland looked phenomenal against the Warriors. They shot the three. Denny Avdia was great. Jeremy Grant. Chumadi Kamara plays elite defense. But I'm also quite low on the Lakers, looking at that full 82.
We're going to slide into the NFL. Monday Night Football, Chiefs, Commanders. Chiefs are 10.5-point favorites at home. Chiefs finally figured it out. They got their full team back. Worthy's healthy. Rashee Rice is back. No Jaden Daniels tonight. It's going to be Marcus Mariota at the helm for the Commanders. That's why the spread is so inflated. Looking like a Chiefs victory tonight. Keep on rolling. I mean, they got to keep up with Denver. Denver, another big win yesterday against Dallas. They lead the AFC West. The Chargers won a game Thursday Night Football. They dominated the Vikings. The AFC West is staying competitive. We were worried about the Chargers completely falling off the cliff with the offensive line and running back injuries. Well, they rebounded. Broncos keep winning. You know that defense is always going to be there throughout the season. So the Chiefs have to keep the foot on the pedal, and I think that's good for them. I think that's good. You've had multiple seasons in the past where they have kind of, 2 years ago when they won the Super Bowl, they were the 3 seed, and they were hosting the Miami Dolphins after a 10 or 11 win season. Last year they have the big regular season in terms of wins, but they never dominated really. So they've done some dominating. Their 3 losses have all been one-score losses. They won all those games last year, and their wins have been dominant offensive performances. So it's a little bit different look Chiefs than what we've had the last couple of years. It's more resembling of the offensive outputs that we got back in the Mahomes and Tyreek Hill days. So that's fun to see. That's fun to watch as a Chiefs fan. I think tonight will be more of the same. The Commanders' defense hasn't been excellent. It's at Arrowhead. That's always going to be a tough place to play no matter how good the Chiefs are that year. So I think the more talking points that need to happen is yesterday's slate, because we had quite a few fun games. The Jets-Bengals, probably game of the day. 39-38, the Jets come back, score 23 points in the fourth quarter alone, and they are the final team without a win this season has been erased. The Jets get on the board.
What a crazy game. The Cincinnati Bengals in an AFC North, they still had that glimmer. Like, even without Joe Burrow, if they were able to get a couple of wins, stay in the hunt, it wouldn't have been over. But this loss felt really degrading and felt like this might be the end of their season. If you lose to a team that has 0 wins, that is unacceptable for a playoff team. 39 points for the New York Jets. That last play, Breece Hall to Mason Taylor, sent everybody home. And Justin Fields didn't look that bad.
He's playing with the chip on the shoulder after Woody Johnson's comments, and he had a heck of a game. He wasn't even going to start. If Tyrod Taylor was healthy and could go, he was going to play this game. Instead, just happened that Tyrod was injured, couldn't play. They put in Justin Fields, and now he earned himself another month at least. So happy for Justin Fields. Jets get on the board with the win, and yeah, for the Bengals, that's if you would have told them they're coming off the Thursday Night Football victory against Pittsburgh where they torched them. Joe Flacco torched them. Defense did just enough, and if you would have told them that the Steelers were going to lose again this week on Sunday Night Football against the Packers, you got to host the Jets at home, and Lamar Jackson wasn't going to play again for the Ravens, you would have been like, holy cow. If we win this, we're 4-4. We are right there in the AFC North, half a game back behind the Steelers, who we already beat. Joe Burrow's going to come back eventually. We're right here in the driver's seat, really. I mean, I would have put my chips in on the Bengals if you would have told me that, especially as a fan. And instead, they lose to the Jets. The Ravens stay afloat with a win with Tyler Huntley.
Still there. It's crazy.
Huntley probably should have been playing this entire time
instead
of Cooper Rush, but it's another conversation. Now, I think that if this Ravens game upcoming this week was not on Thursday Night Football, we would have seen Lamar yesterday. But because it was going to be a short week, they want Lamar starting this week, and so he can play the extended period of time. So I think they gambled. They gave Lamar another week before the Thursday Night Football. Now he's going to have a kind of an extended week after the primetime game Thursday night. I think that was smart, especially with hindsight talking. You won the game.
And rarely do you see in Week 8 that this occurs, but the Ravens are in a spot where it's a must-win. Everything is now. There's no room for error.
I would pick them to win the division right now.
I would too. When you start that poor, you have to go on a crazy run. But they have Lamar Jackson.
And the defense figured something out. Been a very injury-depleted defense. They have been awful to start the year. They figured something out in the bye week. They implemented it yesterday against the Bears. The Bears had 6 points heading into the fourth quarter. 30-16 win over a Chicago Bears team that had won 4 straight, and the offense had been looking a lot better with Caleb Williams and company. So I would pick the Ravens to win the AFC North right now. Steelers lose another one. Their defense has just been bad. I mean, that's what you rest your hat on if you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan year in and year out. You know the defense is going to come up there.
Yeah.
Back-to-back games where they've allowed 30-plus points. Jordan Love torched them 360 through the air, 3 touchdowns. That was a fun game on Sunday Night Football. You know who else was fun? The Indianapolis Colts just continue to roll. We figured they were going to get another win against the Titans. Well, they dominated once again. Daniel Jones and Jonathan Taylor combo has been fireworks.
And they're truly a contender. I know it sounds ridiculous, but Jonathan Taylor looks like he could be in MVP talks, and I never would put him in MVP talks because I saw what Christian McCaffrey did just a few years ago, and he wasn't recognized for that. And Saquon Barkley at 2,000 yards, and he wasn't recognized for that. So we're getting to a point where running backs aren't even considered. But Jonathan Taylor is the MVP of the Colts. And systematically, after Irsay passed away Touche, they are taking it and running with it. This is the best the Colts have looked in quite some time. And I'm with these sorts of teams, I'm never comfortable to really say like that's a contender. But I think I am with the Colts just because of Jonathan Taylor and how good he is.
The offense has been awesome, and the defense is doing enough as well. They've had a very easy strength of schedule to start the year. It's going to get tougher. They have the 8th toughest strength of schedule right now. They still have 2 games against the Jaguars, a game against the Chiefs, a game against the Niners, a game against the
Chiefs will be really good.
a game against the Seahawks, and then a game against Pittsburgh as well. You can debate if that's a tough game or not. And they also still have both their games against the Texans, who looked fantastic yesterday, against the 49ers. That defense really looks good. So they've got a tough go of it to end the year, so that's when we're really going to see how much confidence we'll have in the postseason setting of betting on them or not. Because I said a few weeks ago, if you remember right, I was like, this is a team that screams, dominates the regular season. They get a high seed in the playoffs, and then they get uprooted by one of those teams in the 5 or 6 seed range, 7 seed range that are really the better team, and they show it in a 1-game sample size playoff thing. So I think I'm still in that boat, but that offense has been awesome. And Jonathan Taylor is so fun to see because he was legitimately one of the best players in the league 3-4 years ago when we were in high school, and now for him to return to that form, it's special. He's back-to-back games with 3 touchdowns scored, so he's been awesome. Surprising performance yesterday was, I think the Falcons we have to label as bad now.
Yeah, I don't think they're very good at all. That was quite embarrassing. You're at home, 34 points the Dolphins scored. Their head coach is on the hot seat. Tua Tagovailoa is saying he can't see over the lineman, and then he does that. I mean, it just can't happen.
Said he can't see over the lineman. Then he wakes up and his eye is swollen. So he's down an eye. He's already got the height thing. And he just torched it, threw for 4 touchdowns against the Atlanta defense.
And Atlanta didn't have Penix or Drake London, so I understand that. Miami's defense was able to zero in on Bijan Robinson. He was shut down.
He was. It was very, very good game plan implemented by Miami.
But the defense for Atlanta just has to be better.
That was supposed to be their redeeming quality.
And they've been good before this week.
They beat the Bills. The San Francisco offense didn't move the ball incredibly well last week.
So out of nowhere, it was just a blow up in all 3 phases.
Could have been just wounded animal mode. Dolphins were backs up against the wall. They were desperate for a win, and they got it. But the Falcons have lost a couple head scratchers. They were 7-point favorites at home in this game, and they lose by 24 points to the Miami Dolphins, who people would have already said Dolphins fans have been wanting McDaniels fired for weeks. They've also lost that 30-0 game against the Panthers, where they were heavy favorites, and they got shut out. And so they've had 2 of the more surprising results of the season now in terms of where Vegas had that game going and how it actually ended up. So, yeah, Atlanta is just – the NFC South is way weaker than we even expected it to be if the Falcons aren't playing well.
Absolutely.
And the Panthers, speaking of NFC South, got absolutely killed by the Buffalo Bills. That was a typical get-back spot for Buffalo. They took advantage of it after the bye. Any other games you want to talk about? What'd you see in your Niners game?
Just too depleted. I mean, another injury. D. Winters, who's our star young linebacker, is now hurt. Bryce Huff is hurt. He's out for a couple. Like, if you're not a Niners fan and you turn on the Niners, you might know 2 players on the defense. And I think that kind of tells you all you need to know. So it's been tough. They're at the Giants next week. That feels like a get right, especially after Scat is now out for the season, which we're so devastated about. That offense just doesn't really have any weapons anymore. So I think they can really get back to it. And the goal should be 10-7. You get to 10-7, you're in the playoffs, and then you get reinforcements back and maybe go on a run. But that defense is depleted, and they will be trading for a pass rusher. That will be happening at the trade deadline.
Denver, we mentioned it earlier. That was a game where, coming off of the craziness that happened against the Giants, and they came back from down 19-0 heading into the fourth quarter, they allowed the Giants to get 13 more points in that quarter, and they still end up winning the game. I didn't think this was going to be a win territory for them, but they're at home. They're 4-0 now at home. They crushed the Dallas Cowboys. And the Cowboys are, speaking of inconsistency, that's them as well.
They're the definition of it. They're so hard to read. That offense is outstanding when it's at its best.
They showed a graphic yesterday in the game where it was like, Dak has been one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Here's why. Here's a stat why. Javonte Williams was second in the league in rushing touchdowns or something. CeeDee Lamb, in the games he's played, has had 100 or more receiving yards in almost all of them. And then you have George Pickens, who I think he led in yards per catch or something like that. Ferguson was the best tight end so far in the NFL. That's their entire offense has been that good.
Yeah.
And now they are 3-4-1, and they just got 44 points put up against them by the Broncos.
They're terrible away from Jerry's world. They can't win away from home.
1-4 on the road.
I still don't know what to think about the Broncos, because my same hesitation and my same gripe when I look at a contender is, do you have that guy offensively, like that it factor? Every single team that wins the Super Bowl has it, whether it's a quarterback, a star running back, a star receiver.
You're right.
The Packers don't have that.
That's
They
correct.
don't. The Broncos don't have that. So even though they're 6-2, if they end up matching up with the Kansas City Chiefs, you know who's going to win that game.
Cortland Sutton really struggled yesterday. I mean, Troy Franklin was their leading receiver. They're going to win games like that because of how good their defense is. They're at home, and how depleted the Cowboys' secondary is. That's why they ended up winning. But, I mean, you saw it. If an opposing defense against Denver has any one thing they do really well, that they will torment Denver offensively. And that was the case against the Giants through 3 quarters until it all blew up for them in the fourth. But Bo Nix we talk about it, he'll go through majority of games where he looks worst quarterback in the league, and then he just flips a switch, but you can never bank on it.
No, you can't. You mentioned how the Cowboys are inconsistent.
Bo Nix is inconsistent. And yeah, you don't want to bet on an inconsistent quarterback in the playoffs either, because what happens if one of those games he looks awful in is a big postseason game.
And credit to Sean Payton, because he's come in and really changed the culture, I think, back to what it used to be and what it should be. The fact that they're 6-2, it's because that defense is so good. But they're another team. If you think about teams that are in the mix at the deadline for an offensive player, the Broncos have to be in that mix to go get a receiver, or like Brandon Ayuk, who is requesting out. Like, he could be inserted into that Denver offense, and you view it differently.
Buccaneers get it done again. They are 6-2 now. Dominant win on the road against the Saints. Saints ended up benching Rattler for Tyler Shuck. These are always the games. NFC South gets weird at some points. It's tough to play in New Orleans no matter how bad the Saints are. Buccaneers didn't succumb to any of that. They didn't allow a single touchdown. Tampa's way ahead of schedule. We talked about this. They were really injured to start the year. They've had terrible injury luck even since then, and they are still 6-2. That was a team that we were both very high on in terms of a full, complete, healthy roster. We didn't even think we were going to get this much from Baker Mayfield, which we have. And despite all the injuries, the ones they started the year with, the ones that you have added to the injury report, the injured reserve, they are still 6-2. If they get healthy, which now that's a big if, because guys are dropping like flies for them all the time, just like San Fran. If they get healthy, the final 2 months of the season, they are the team that I would be most confident in the NFC.
I agree. I think that they are an underrated Super Bowl contender because the teams that they play in the regular season aren't that taxing. that team mentally is going to be so confident going into the playoffs. And if they can get a top 3 seed, you got to go to Tampa. Baker Mayfield, no longer playing at a true MVP level after the past couple of weeks, but has still been super good. They're right there with the Eagles or the Packers or the Lions. And this is an NFC where if you sat there and you tried to convince me that X, Y, and Z are contenders, I'd hear you out. Because there's not one that stands out. There's not.
And this is really interesting. They are not in the top 6 in odds right now to win the NFC.
Wow.
You have the Packers at plus 350, the Lions at plus 360, the Eagles behind them at plus 450, Rams starting at plus 500. Then you have the 2 NFC West teams and the Seahawks and the Niners behind them at plus 1,200. And then you have Tampa Bay.
That's crazy.
Is that not incredible value? I think that's awesome value. Plus 1,200 to win the NFC, and we're talking about it's the team we like most in that conference. So they just got to stay healthy. I think that's why that number is so favorable for bettors that like them because of the injuries that are baked in. But they're definitely a team to monitor over the next few months into December to see if they can get healthy. Any other NFL games?
That's all I got. It was a good slate.
Patriots won
Sunday.
again.
They did. They're really good. And I know the schedule is so easy, but I genuinely think they're really good because Drake May is outstanding. He is elite.
When you don't have to apologize for schedules, because how many times do we see it where, you get lucky, you're playing some awful teams to start the year, and that gets you in the role, and then you're playing very well against the good teams on your schedule.
Yeah.
So I would say that for the Colts. I'd say that for the Patriots. It's a team to be, and we talk about how their schedule doesn't even get that much. They have a game against the Falcons. Is their next one?
Against the Jets?
They haven't played a single Jets game yet. They still have the Dolphins game left. I mean, that's probably 4 more wins we just named. That would get them to 10.
Yeah, and that's enough already.
So
It would be
they will be in the
colossal
playoffs.
Failure at this point to not make the playoffs.
They will be in the playoffs. I think it is a guarantee at this point.
Yeah.
All right, we didn't get to preview the World Series on Friday, but that is the final sport that we haven't talked about for this Equinox Day. Game 3, going back to LA, they split the first 2. Game 1 was just an offensive shellacking by Toronto. That's how they're going to win this series, is putting up offensive numbers like that. That's what they've done all year. Game 2 was the reverse. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, his second complete game of the postseason, shuts down that Toronto offense. They split that. Now they're heading back to LA. Series tied 1-1 tonight. It is Scherzer versus Glasnow. Glasnow's been terrific. Scherzer had a fantastic start against Seattle, but I know we're both in the same boat. He is not going to do that again. At least we don't think.
No, I think that Dodgers will win Game 3 tonight. They're minus 200 or something on the money line, which tells you all you need to know. The way that Toronto will win this game, though, is Tyler Glasnow doesn't generally go deep into ball games. That's the same story with a lot of these starting pitchers. The reason he went deep against the Milwaukee Brewers is because their offense is atrocious. The Blue Jays offense is really good. So if they can fan Glasnow after 4 1/3, 5 innings, Scherzer gives you competitive ball for 4 innings, and it's 2-1 Dodgers, then yeah, the Blue Jays can win this game because, as we saw in Game 1 of the series, as we've seen throughout the entire playoffs, it just hasn't been exposed. The Dodgers bullpen is horrific. It is really, really bad. So for the Blue Jays, I know that it would have been preferable to take 2 games at home to start the series, but they're not out of this. This isn't that the series is over. Already much more competitive than the World Series last year, despite it not being the New York Yankees on the other side.
Well, in the ALCS, Seattle is a tough place to play as well. And the Mariners walked into
Yeah,
Rogers
they
Center and beat them both in games 1 and 2. They went down to Seattle, down 2 games in the series. Seattle just had to win 2 of the next 3 at their place to win the World Series, and they didn't do it. They didn't win 2 out of 3 in Seattle. They won 1, and then they lost both back in Toronto. So, I mean, the blueprint is still there because of how good the Blue Jays are at home. If they can send this back,
Yes.
Game 6, even if they're down 3-2,
Yes.
heading back to Game 6, just like they were against the Mariners. Yes, I agree with that. They have to send this back to Toronto for them to have a shot. I mean, obviously, because if they lose the next 3. But we laid out this blueprint. It's obvious with that is the Dodgers' glaring weakness is the bullpen. Their starters have been going ultra deep into ball games. Just said it. Yamamoto had a second complete game. Snell was going deep into ball games. They chased him in game one, and they showed how weak the bullpen was. They got to do that again against Glasnow. I agree. They got to do that again against Ohtani tomorrow night. That has to be the one strategy offensively is just get to that bullpen, get to that bullpen, get to that bullpen. And Yamamoto helped him out big time. I mean, you reset the bullpen when you don't have to use anybody right before an off day. Full bullpen to be used. Sasaki will be there. Trinan's going to be there for LA. So this first game, we're not giving the Blue Jays a great chance to win because of Max Scherzer. We don't think he will have that vintage self again. But who cares? Lose a game 11-9. Get to that bullpen because you have to blow up the reset. I mean, they haven't used a guy since game one. Yeah. You have to change that. You have to. This is the one time in this series where there will be back-to-back-to-back games. No off days. You have to blow up the bullpen in game one to get it behind schedule for the next two games.
Yep, absolutely. And if the Blue Jays win tonight, like if they can do it tonight, it feels really favorable moving forward because then you just have to split in LA and then you're back home. It's a big one for both sides, and of course it is because the series is tied, but I'd expect LA to get it done. And more on Yamamoto, when he got that 13-year, $300 whatever million contract, Shay and I both raised an eyebrow. But all I have to do is tip the cap to the Dodgers because if you have a starter in a single postseason, throw 2 complete games, that is worth any blank check imaginable, especially when you have billionaire owners. So
he's been terrific.
Yeah.
Yamamoto is terrific. Glasnow was looking at that 0.68 ERA. He's been really good. And I think because of what we just laid out, if Scherzer does have a blow-up start, I think if you're Schneider in the Toronto dugout, you just let him go as long as possible.
Yes.
You got to let him go as long as possible.
You need him to eat innings.
Scherzer doesn't like giving the ball up anyway. He will throw 100 pitches for you if you allow him, even if he is allowing 6 runs. So just let him eat as many innings as possible to save your bullpen. You need to try to position your bullpen in a better, more advantageous spot than LA's because you play back-to-back-to-back nights.
And it's too bad bullpen. The Blue Jays bullpen isn't great either. It's two bad bullpens. That Blue Jays offense is what they lean on. And if you like offense, I think tonight could be the game for you. It feels like it could be. You mentioned 11-9. I could totally see that being a reality.
Yeah.
I'm excited. This, although it's not Yankees Dodgers and well, I guess it is West Coast versus East Coast, but not the two biggest markets in America. I wanted to emphasize on our show a couple weeks ago that the Blue Jays are significantly better than the Yankees were last year, and they're proving that thus far.
And they beat the Yankees this year to get to this spot. So it's a fun Toronto team. Baseball is one of those sports where if we call it the juice, but they have it. If you have that environment on your side, if this team obviously loves playing with each other, the vibes are high. You can't discount that. You can't discount that over a 7-game series of the chemistry, and the guys just love playing with each other. They want to win. They care that deeply about getting it done for their city, for the franchise. That is a boost. It sounds silly to say, but that is a boost. That can give you more than what just the players on a piece of paper and a batting order and a bullpen, the guys in the bullpen and a rotation can actually say about a team.
Yep.
All right, it's going to be a fun Sports Equinox. What is the first game? I think it's the NBA Cavs-Pistons game to start the Equinox. Either that or the Blues-Penguins game. But Blues-Penguins start at 4. The Cavs game, I believe, is 4. All right. So if you want to watch this entire Equinox, those are your 2 games to start with. And you got Monday Night Football and the World Series Game 3 starting around 5 p.m. So
yeah, that World Series game. I mean, it is the World Series, so obviously, but it is by far, I think, the best game on this slate. But we love baseball too, so we're back.
32nd annual Sports Equinox should be a good one.
Thank
Been a
you
pleasure.
all for joining us.